Hi everyone, it's Rabbi Dr. Jack Cohen. We have a very special edition of our class which pulls most of the material from Chaim Kanievsky's book on Shidduchim. Chaim Kanievsky was unquestionably one of the great, if not the greatest of the generation. He had much to share with us. Thousands of people came to visit him for consultations in terms of dating. We're going to know a lot from him. We're going to start with him tonight, and then we're going to expand to some Q&As that people had written in, and we'll discuss the answers and the questions as well. Again, as I always start my presentations, please, I want to urge everyone to go out and put your profiles or your dating resumes on Shidduch Profiles Plus. Used to be called Partners in Shidduchim, a beautiful organization, a very selfless organization. It does it just to promote Shidduchim and to try to get as many people married as possible. If you need any help in writing up or crafting your profile there, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you. I'm at 305-206-1916. Again, Partners in Shidduchim, or now it's called Shidduch Profiles Plus is the way to go. So please, if you know anyone who's single, a family member, a loved one, a friend, or yourself, I urge you, please get your profile up there. Because I've myself used it extensively, very successfully, to be able to connect people, and eventually quite a few got married. And if you have any questions on dating, or you're in a relationship, or you need advice in any kind, or you'd like a copy of the PDF of dating questions, or would like to get my help in putting together a top 10 list, or you need help in Shalom Bayis, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'm at 305-206-1916. So let's get started with Rav Chaim's take on medical issues and medical difficulties and all types of complications when it comes to Shidduchim. The Shulchan Aruch, which is the code of law that we all live by as Jews, states that a man should not marry a person or a woman from a family that suffers from certain medical conditions. Now, listen up, because this is very important. In Hebrew, there's a word called chazakah. Chazakah means that there's an established assumption that something is going to happen. For example, in order to have chazakah on something, it has to have happened at least 3 times. And that's the key here. If someone comes to you and says that the family of the person you're dating has several people that suffer from a certain medical condition, if 3 people have it, you got to worry. Less than that, 2 or 1, it's not a concern. And so that's how Rab Chaim is to paskin all the time, in the name of his father. And that is that chazakah, or an established assumption that something might happen, must meet the criteria of having happened 3 times. Let's say 3 people in a family have diabetes. And we're talking about the immediate family. It's either 3 siblings, or it's got to be the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter. That's how we view it. Okay. A shidduch was suggested for someone whose much younger siblings had serious medical issues. The stipler, was Rav Chaim's father, said that there was a large age gap between the older child and the younger siblings, and you could assume that nothing bad would happen, and he gave the allowance for the shidduch to take place. Now, again, when shidduch cases where siblings suffer from mental health issues or other illnesses were brought to Rav Chaim, he said that if there was 2 or 1 siblings suffering from that condition, it was okay. 3 was a problem already. He would discourage that shidduch. When one party in the shidduch suffers from a health or an emotional issue that's not known to the other party, now here's a fantastic point that happens and comes up again and again as I mentor and I consult with thousands of people. That when do I reveal that there's a medical condition? We're going to have some more didactic involvement later in tonight's class. I'm going to give you specifics of how to do this. But the most important thing is you don't have to reveal right away. The halakha doesn't require you to reveal right away. You can go out several times. Usually it's between 3 to 5 dates where you have to, and it's appropriate, and it's a requirement to tell the other side that and I will show you how to say it, that you have a certain medical condition. Again, Rab Chaim would say it does not have to be revealed before the 2 people have met. Withholding information from the other party is not considered being dishonest. Again, withholding important medical information prior to meeting is not considered to being dishonest. However, after the 2 have met 3 times as minimum, and matters seem to be headed in a positive direction, it must be revealed. So again, we'd like to see if a kesher can be built between the man or the woman, the boy and the girl. So we need to give it at least 3 shots. And then at that point, if it's looking good and both parties like each other, then the person who's suffering from that medical or emotional or mental issue needs to reveal that. Okay. There was a great sage in Israel about 140 years ago. His name was Rav Israel Zalman Meltzer. Rabbi Zalman Meltzer happened to have been the father-in-law of Rav Cutler. Rav Cutler is the famous Rav Cutler who started one of the biggest yeshivas in the world today called the BMG Yeshiva, or the yeshiva in Lakewood. And he was one of the leading Gedolei Yisrael before and after World War II. This Rav Chaim Meltzer, who was the father-in-law of Cutler, studied at the Volozhiner Yeshiva. During his engagement, he had gotten engaged to an orphan daughter of someone who had been a person who was a big Baal Tzedakah. He contracted tuberculosis. Today it's not an issue because we already have vaccinations for these things. But about 140 years ago it was an issue. People died from these things. So Rabbi Zalman Meltzer was forced to return to his parents' home where they lived in the town of Mir. He informed his future Kala's family, he had been engaged to this girl, of his illness, and he assured them that he fully understood if they wanted to break the Shidduchim and back out. He gave them full permission to exit. The Kala's family sent money to Rabbi Zalman to pay for his medical treatments, and at the same time were pressuring their daughter to break off the Shidduch. She refused, despite the doctor's predictions that he probably would not live more than a year. As family members continued to pressure the young woman to break the Shidduch, the woman, accompanied by her mother, traveled to Radin, to the home of the famous Chaim, to seek his guidance and consult with him as to what to do. Chaim told them the following. Listen to what he told them. He said, quote, "There are people who are healthy, and there are people who are not healthy, but who live long." It was clear that he was hinting to her something here. The Chavetz Chaim was an outstanding tzaddik, a righteous person, who absolutely had Ruach HaKodesh and divine inspiration, who could see into the future if someone was going to live and someone was going to die. And he was hinting to her that you can go ahead and get married to this fellow, that even though he's not healthy, I predict he'll live a long life. It was clear that the Chavetz Chaim was saying to her that this future chassan or groom of hers would live long despite the health challenges that he was facing. They got married, and though he suffered from ailments while they were married, Rabbi Zalman Meltzer lived until the ripe age of 83. His wife bore him wonderful children, including the Chana Pearl, one of the daughters, that would go on to become the wife of Aharon Kotler, who became the undisputed leader of Torah and a giant of the 20th century in America. And so we could see that when a tzaddik sees into the future, and he said, don't worry about it. Now, let's keep going. Another medical diagnosis that we deal with is diabetes. When there's an issue of diabetes, how do we deal with that? When Chaim Kanievsky was asked if one should pursue a shidduch suggestion where the young man suffers from type 1 diabetes. Now let me step back. As a medical doctor, let me tell you what the difference is. Type 1 diabetes is a diabetes that you're born with. And usually that starts with insulin treatments. Type 2 is acquired diabetes, where you've been healthy as an individual, however, now either in adolescence or in adult years, you acquire diabetes. So he was consulted, what should they do if the young man that this girl was interested was known to be a Baal Midot, that he was a fine person of fine character, who had Yirah Shamayim, who had fear of heaven. That means that he was checking out on paper really well. Reb Chaim explained that he said it was okay to continue to date him. He replied by citing a famous Gemara that discusses certain weather conditions that make performing a circumcision dangerous. And the Gemara concludes, you know what? Don't worry about it. Hashem protects those people of simple faith. And Chaim said the same thing applies to health conditions like diabetes that are common, and don't prevent people from living normal, productive lives. For example, if you have diabetes and you have controlled sugar, controlled glycemia as we call it, and the person is not, suffering from any symptoms that as a result of poor health, but the diabetes is under control, there's no reason to prevent that couple from getting married. Because people today that have controlled diabetes and they're taking their medications can live normal, productive lives. And he said this applies to diabetes. Reb Chaim also said that the fact that a sibling, a brother or a sister of a boy or girl has diabetes is certainly no cause for concern. Let's say you're going out with someone, and you're going out with a young woman, and you found out that she has a sister who has diabetes, or has a brother that has diabetes. Reb Chaim Kanievsky says, in no uncertain terms, it's not a problem at all, since less than 3 occurrences is not a chazaka. A problem would be, if there was 3 siblings that had the same condition, then you'd have what to worry about, and we would discourage such a shidduch. Reb Samson Raphael, one of the great leaders of Torah Jewry in Germany, also wrote that one has to be concerned with medical ailments only if they've occurred at least 3 times in the family. And that is, again, let me repeat, either 3 siblings in the same family have that same medical condition, or it's in 3 generations, the mother, the daughter, or the granddaughter. Now, a father came to speak with Reb Chaim regarding his 19-year-old daughter who suffered from multiple sclerosis. That's a condition where the nerves are not communicating properly to the muscles. How, the man wondered, would he find a young man who would be willing to marry a girl with such a disability? Reb Chaim replied that he should seek a young man who also has some sort of deficiency. Again, very, very smart thinking, and I apply this all the time. A person who has a pegam should marry a person that has a pegam. And that is like this. A person who has a deficiency of some sort should try to get connected to someone who has also a deficiency, because then they'll be more tolerant of you. Reb Chaim elaborated. He said to the father of the young woman, if you ask me, go look for someone who's like destitute and outright poor, has no money at all, right? And as a result, they won't look to be so, picky when it comes to Shidduchim. The grandfather of a certain young man was afflicted with several illnesses. When this young man was suggested for a certain young woman, her father asked one of the Gedolei Hador, Reb Steinman, should I allow the shidduch to take place because the grandfather has multiple illnesses. And Rambam Steinman got very upset at the man. He goes, what do you expect? That they're going to remain single all their life because of the grandfather? There's no connection. And so the shidduch went forward. Today, now let's talk about genetics and genetic diseases. Today it's quite common that before the first shidduch meeting takes place, the 2 sides contact Dor Yesharim, an organization based right here in New York, to make sure that the couple's children will not suffer from Tay-Sachs or other genetic diseases, God forbid. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, one of the great leaders of Torah Jewry, one of the great poskim of Eretz Yisrael, passed away about 30 years ago, was of the opinion that since such testing exists and the birth of such children causes enormous pain, to have a child that's born with Tay-Sachs or any horrific genetic disease, you should be tested before a shidduch is concluded. Someone who was on the verge of becoming engaged told Rabbi Aaron Leib Steinman that he and his prospective Kala had both tested positive for Tay-Sachs, which meant that there was 1 in 4 chance that their children would have this disease. That means if you both test positive, the boy and the girl, it's a 25% chance that your children will have disease. Rabbi Aaron Leib absolutely advised not to proceed with the shidduch. The chances were too great and too risky that the children would come out with Tay-Sachs. Reb Chaim advises that you make use of the Dor Yesharim test, and indeed, all his grandchildren made use of the test prior to their shidduchim. It's very valid, it's very effective, it's innocuous, and it could save a lot of heartache. However, Reb Chaim does say that if one side is insistent, they don't want to take the test, the other side doesn't have to agree to it, and they can leave the shidduch, because it's important. Okay, here we go. Once when Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's grandson, Rav Goldberg, attempted to serve as a shadchan, matters hit a snag when the young man refused to undergo genetic testing with Dor Yesharim. Rav Shlomo Zalman advised his grandson that if the young man doesn't change his mind, don't proceed with the shidduch, and you should just cancel this shidduch. And the rabbi said that such testing could save a couple's children from serious health issues, and that there was no reason not to make use of this simple and fairly straightforward test. Reb Chaim Kanievsky relates, what about cousins? Let's talk about cousins, marrying cousins. In practice, Reb Chaim says, my father would discourage marriages between cousins. He would often say that from a medical and genetic standpoint, it's not advisable for cousins to marry each other. And Reb Chaim says, I recall one instance when I was asked to ask my father about a shidduch between cousins, and I replied, if you want, I can gladly ask my father, but I can tell you, my father's opinion in this matter is to avoid pursuing a shidduch between cousins. So we have to be careful with that one. Let's go on now and do some little bit of Q&A and some of the subjects of medical issues. Now, let's talk a little bit about genetic testing. A woman writes, I have a slightly problematic situation. I'm 20 years old and have very strong feelings for one of my cousins, a male. Our families are very close, and every time we get together, I'm excited to see my male cousin. I know that I like him for the right reasons. He's considerate, he's kind, he's caring, he's a deep person and very smart. Also, the way he talks to me and smiles gives me a warm feeling inside. He's everything that I'm looking for in a potential husband. I'm getting anxious because I really want to date him, and it's clear that he likes me, but maybe there are problems marrying a first cousin. Should I go ahead with this? Now, let's hear the answer. Jewish law permits marrying cousins. In the United States, we see that it does happen. However, there's something that such a couple should do before they begin dating, because familial diseases have a stronger likelihood of being passed down to children when the parents are related. Cousins who plan to date should be tested for genetic compatibility for marriage without exception. Perhaps you have heard harrowing stories of families whose lives were upended by diseases that cause blindness or retardation, paralysis, and death in early childhood. Diseases like Tay-Sachs, Gaucher's disease, Kanievsky's disease, Fanconi's anemia, and cystic fibrosis. When both parents are carriers, there's a 25% chance the child will have such a disease. All these diseases are autosomal recessive disorders, which means that for a child to inherit them, each parent must carry a copy of that affected gene. The diseases mentioned appear in high proportion amongst American Jews. Apparently they began with a mutation in DNA which, because of inbreeding, was passed on rather than selected out. For centuries, Eastern European Ashkenazi Jewish community maintained a very successful intramarriage rate. Thus, in the Ashkenazi community, 1 in 25 are Tay-Sachs carriers. That's pretty high. And an estimated 1 in 7 Jews is a carrier of some genetic disorder prevalent amongst Jewish populations. We said more in the Ashkenazi community because they inbred a lot. Fortunately, scientists have now researched and reached a certain understanding of how genetics work, and they've been able to identify the carriers for genetic diseases. That's where predating testing comes in. A Brooklyn-based organization called Dor Yesharim that we spoke about before carries out genetic testing for Jews and gives prospective couples the medical information necessary to make an informed decision. Dor Yesharim uses a system of blind testing so that even those doing the testing don't know the identity of the clients that they are testing. After testing, each individual is assigned a code number. When he or she wants to begin dating someone, the other party's number is matched against his or her number. If both parties are carriers for the same disease, they are informed that their prospective union is not advisable and are offered counseling. It's time to quit that shidduch. The tests are done in strict confidence, and only the man and the woman involved are told of the results. This avoids the problem of families who are concerned about being stigmatized. No one knows anything. Dor Yesharim's founder started the organization. Listen to this. Sad, sad, sad story, because he lost 4 of his children to Tay-Sachs and then decided, I better do something about it. And that man has olam haba, because what he's done to save hundreds of thousands of people from potential horrific diseases. Dor Yesharim was founded by Rabbi Yosef Eckstein, who lost 4 of his 10 children to Tay-Sachs and then decided to do something about it. To date, the group has tested over 100,000 men and women, and such efforts have reduced problems in the Jewish community to where Tay-Sachs is actually more common today amongst the Gentiles as opposed to the Jews. It is recommended that every Jew get tested before entering the dating scene, and that 2 people find out whether they're compatible for marriage, either before they begin to date each other or very early in the courtship process. If you wait, there's the possibility of discovering that both the man and the woman are carriers. And then comes the difficult decision: should we get married with all the attendant risks for our future children, or do we suffer the heartache now of calling off the marriage? I recently, about a year ago, walked into my watch repair shop to have my watch repaired, and he told me that he watches my lectures on Torah anytime, on YouTube and Instagram and all that. And he said to me that his son was in a certain graduate school program, and that a young lady took a liking to him, and he started going out, and it looked like there was a sure hit that we're going to get married. For some reason, they decided, though they were a Sephardic, culture background, they decided to test for Dor Yesharim, and they came out both positive with each other, and they could not go forward. It was such a hard decision for them to make because they're classmates and they see each other every day. So it was, but it was unfortunately an absolutely necessary move that they had to do, to call off that shidduch, and to see how critical it is to be tested. By the way, just for for the public's welfare, the number for Dor Yesharim in America is 718-384-6060. Again, 718-384-6060. Okay, moving forward, another 2 letters let's discuss. 2 letters regarding the best time and place to discuss a sensitive medical condition. One person writes, I'm 27, I'm a 27-year-old Jewish male, working in a good job as a manager at a large corporation. I'm tall, I'm smart, I'm funny, I'm caring. I recently found out from my doctor that I contracted a disease which has a stigma associated with it in society. I'm skeptical because whether a woman would be receptive to me if I knew I had it. Would someone want to date me? This leaves me in a difficult position. I want to meet a nice Jewish woman and settle down, but my playing field is extremely limited. What advice can you offer in finding that special someone? Here's another one. I'm an intelligent, attractive woman and well-liked by my friends and coworkers. I have a psychiatric history, in my case, bipolar. I see quite a bit of this stuff. I've been stable for years. The main difference between me and other people is that I have to take medication on a regular basis, and I do, so it's well managed. I don't have a lot of baggage about the condition itself, but the situation changes drastically when dating comes up. Stigma, misinformation, and stereotypes still abound. When I'm front about it, it's a non-starter. After all, who wants to date someone who's quote-unquote crazy? So what should I do? If I wait till later, I'm accused of withholding information. It's always a concern. Or I was being deceitful. Because after all, would they have gone out with me had they known that I had bipolar disorder, even if it's managed? If my condition comes out, I feel like I'm a leper. So, are the legions of us with psychiatric disorders doomed to a life of being single the rest of their life? Listen to the answer. It's a terrible mistake for anyone to classify someone with a mental or physical illness as being crazy, unable to cope, unable to have a normal life. Some people with diseases or disorders have severe symptoms and don't respond well to medication. Others can never really accept the fact that they have a lifelong condition and don't discipline themselves to take their necessary medication, while others manage the condition well and can even have great marriages. All of these are the different scenarios that we see out there. If you've been able to manage your condition over a number of years and know when to seek medical intervention, there's no technical reason why you can't lead a normal, challenged life, maybe, and marry and raise a nice family. I can suggest how to go about dating when you have a chronic condition. I've done this for men and women who suffer from illness such as diabetes, autoimmune disorders, mental illness, and other conditions. The first is to become as well educated about your illness as possible and to manage it to the best of your ability, which means you have to be consistent in taking your medications. I've had a client who stopped taking the medications, and she needs to always take her medications, and because of that led to a life-threatening episode and bad consequences. Maintain a good relationship with your doctor, both to acquire the information about how to manage your illness and to maximize your health. And because in the future someone you care about may want to discuss your condition with your physician, which is their every right to do. I recommend that you also join a support group of people with a similar condition who also would like to find a nice person with whom they can settle down and raise a family, as well as people with the condition who have already married and are dealing with their condition in the context of marriage. That way you can get some support, some chizuk. This will give you the encouragement to know that there are many other personable, normal men and women who are successfully facing similar challenges like yourself. As for what point in a courtship to reveal the condition, we recommend that usually about date number 3. You can introduce the subject by explaining how do you talk about it. You tell the person you're dating you've got a medical condition that has been under control for many years, and that you have received guidance about when to disclose it to someone you're dating. If you adopt a sincere, straightforward, and informative approach, you have a much better likelihood that your date will decide to continue with the relationship. Explain to your date that you have a condition that you're able to manage and doesn't stop you from enjoying a fulfilling life, but it has a stigma attached to it, and that is why you didn't discuss it until the 3rd or 4th date, since they probably wouldn't want to date you. You should also explain to the person that you're dating that you're dating with the goal of getting married and having a Jewish home, and that your doctor assures you that you'll be able to accomplish this and that your condition will only minimally interfere with your marriage. Be prepared to answer a number of questions. You can also let your date know that your doctor is happy to talk to him or talk to her about your situation and your prognosis either now or at some time in the future. A disclosure at this time allows the two of you to begin to develop an emotional connection so that when your date evaluates how he or she feels about being able to balance this with the fact that they think you're a nice person and would like to continue to date you. It also saves you the embarrassment of letting someone know about your condition before you decide whether or not you'd like to keep dating them. On the other hand, if you wait until much later to disclose, the person may believe that you betrayed their trust by waiting until the two of you are more emotionally involved. So it's always a balancing act as to when to do this, but it's usually between date 3 or date 4. Of course, it's difficult to know how any date will react to the news of being told about your medical condition, particularly one that carries a certain amount of stigma. And it will certainly be painful if your date decides against continuing to date you, having you explained your situation, but that's their choice. It'll be much easier on both of you if a breakup occurs after a small number of dates than after the two of you have developed a stronger emotional attachment. Let's say date 8 or date 10 or date 12, and then you disclose the information and it can be emotionally a wrecker. I know that these days dating is not easy for most people, and anyone with a medical condition faces more challenges. Fortunately, many of them lead fulfilling lives and have good marriages. Okay, let's keep going with this. Question: I have a chronic illness. My friends believe I'm a wonderful catch, but I'm afraid I'll be viewed as damaged goods. So what should I do? I'm a 30-year-old woman who 2 years ago went from having 0 health issues to having a serious chronic illness. I've battled to a place that is now stable, and I am hoping to start dating. My friends and family are convinced that I have wonderful things to offer a man, but I'm afraid that I'll be viewed as damaged goods to a man. Finding a good husband is hard enough when you're at your best, but I'm not what I once was. How can I compete with other young, healthy women in this crazy dating world? What if, like any other friend of mine, I fall for someone only for him to leave me when I disclose my health status to him? How do I regain my confidence and move forward with my uncertain future? Okay, answer. First of all, we're happy to hear that you have achieved the hard-fought health stability, and I hope that Hashem continues to guide you to a full recovery. I also hope that you're able to use the following answer to date successfully and soon find the right man for yourself to marry. It seems that you already have an advantage in that process. You believe in yourself and not all that you have to offer to a future husband, and you believe in marriage, and you believe you'll be a great candidate for it. Being able to project a positive self-image is a truly important requirement here. It's a hard to define quality that most people are looking for, especially potential men that will date you. Having friends who believe in you and support your desire to get married is another plus in your favor. You can enlist your friends and family to help you in networking. Your friends can also be a good source of emotional support if you sometimes feel discouraged and just have a low day or a low moment about how your dating is going. One more factor that will help you is you understanding that your medical condition will be a factor in your dating career, and that some men you date will not be willing to continue once they learn about your situation. So accept and program your brain. There will be some rejections out there. There will be some people who may just take a left turn once they find out. Fortunately, it's not going to be true for every man. I personally know people who decide to continue dating after they learned about the other person's serious illness that includes cancer, God forbid, or diabetes, or depression, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, visual impairment, Crohn's disease, which is inflammation of the intestines, and many of these couples went on to marry. It can help to view a situation from such a perspective of, I'm looking for only one man who's right for me and can accept me for who I am, instead of I have to compete in the dating pool with all these other women. So change your attitude and your focus towards, I'm only looking for one person who will accept me for who I am. When you and your friends network, don't disclose the medical condition. Again, when you ask people to network on your behalf, looking for Shidduchim for yourself, don't disclose the medical condition. If only a small number of people know about your illness and prognosis, keep it that way. Collaborate with people who are helping you search on how they can describe you to potential dates and to anyone who might know someone that might be good for you. One way to offer such a description would be, I want to help a friend of mine find the right guy to marry. She's an amazing person, and I'm hoping you might know a good man to set her up with. In the next 2 or 3 sentences, your friend can mention what you're doing in life, what profession you're involved in, what work career you have. Tell them 4 of your best qualities, 4 things you're looking for in a marriage partner. That can open up the door for further discussion. It's called an elevator pitch. If a number of people outside your close circle of friends and family do know that you are sick, let your networkers know how you would like them to answer questions they may be asked. The answers should be positive, The answer should be honest and brief. For example, yes, she had medical treatment, but she's worked hard to where she is today. She's stable, she's on the medication, and she can lead a normal, robust life. She's stable, she's strong, and she's looking forward to a healthy life. It's all how you frame the situation. Of course, you'll have to let the men you're dating know about your situation. Jewish law tells us that this is important information for a potential spouse to have. Many people consult with a rabbi who's accustomed to giving advice on health-related issues about medical conditions. And they're always told you can wait, and it's perfectly allowable according to Jewish law to wait a few number of dates until you have to disclose. As I've said before in tonight's presentation, usually date 3 or date 4 is appropriate. I can't deny that many people would hesitate to start dating someone if they heard about a serious medical condition while they were vetting the candidate before even dating them. However, once they're dating and start to develop a connection with someone who seems to be living life well, it's easier for them to see your condition as one of many elements that describe you and to consider about you, because you're a multifaceted person, because we're all multifaceted human beings. There's another advantage about disclosing this personal information after a number of dates. You're able to select the men you share it with, people with whom you're starting to feel a connection and you since have some discretion. For example, if it's a one and done, and many dates work out that way, then it's a good thing that you didn't tell, because otherwise there are many people out there who would know about it and there's no need for it. So what should you say? Let's review the text or the script. Be honest and be positive. And this is what I would say. I've got something to discuss with you that I was advised to bring up by my mentors at this point in time in our dating relationship. And the man tells the woman, or the woman tells the man, say date 3 or date 4, we've been out a number of times, and you could see that I am living and enjoying a rewarding life, but I'm also managing a medical condition. 2 years ago, I learned I have XYZ medical condition. I was determined to get healthy, and after a lot of treatment, I'm stable, I'm strong, and I'm looking forward to my future. I'll always have to be on top of my health. I can understand if this is surprising to you, and it's a lot for you to digest. Please ask me any questions you want, and I'll answer those questions the best that I can. You should be prepared to answer questions about how you manage your illness, what your daily routine is like, how your ability to have children may be affected, that's always an important question, and your long-term prognosis. A man who's willing to consider your information will probably have many questions, and you may want to invite him to speak with your doctor. I remember about 4 years ago, I was involved in a certain case where a young man that I knew that I taught in yeshiva was going out with a girl who had one kidney that had been a kidney transplant. And the boy's mother was a pharmacist. And she knew that once the girl gets pregnant, she'd have to come off certain medication that she's on, that she takes daily in order to prevent the rejection of the kidney. And so that could be a crisis, because if she's not on that medication, then she could, God forbid, lose the kidney. And so the mother was arguing vehemently for the boy to leave the shidduch, but he loved the girl. So I was involved, and Renewal was involved. That's an organization that's involved, a fantastic organization that's involved in procuring kidney replacements for people and kidney donations, etc. And they got a posek involved, and all in all, it went smooth, it went well, they went forward, they got married, they had children. So yeah, when you have the right team involved, it makes all the difference in terms of proceeding forward. As you can see, having medical conditions is not an easy situation, but I gave you today a playbook of how to deal with it, when to discuss it. If you have any further questions on it, feel free to reach out to me. I'm at 305-206-1916. Again, each case has to be analyzed on a case-by-case basis, but I'm happy and delighted to answer that question. And if I can't answer that question, I'm sure I could lead you in the direction of those who can. Wishing you only the best. Have a great night.